I'm Elena. I'm 58 years old, and 3 months ago, I did something I had been afraid to do for 35 years. I walked into a small community art studio, picked up a paintbrush, and signed my name on the corner of a blank canvas. It doesn't sound like a big moment. No applause, no dramatic music, just a woman standing in a room that smelled faintly of acrylic paint and turpentine. But my hands were shaking. Because for most of my life, I had convinced myself that the thing I loved most was not meant for me. I need you to hear this, because if even one person listening recognizes themselves in my story, you might save yourself decades of quiet regret. This isn't a story about tragedy. No one stopped me. No one forbade me from chasing what I loved. What kept me away was far more ordinary than that. It was practicality, responsibility, fear dressed up as logic. And for a very long time, I mistook that fear for maturity. When I was 9 years old, my teacher entered one of my drawings into a regional school competition. It was a simple sketch, my mother standing at the kitchen sink with sunlight coming through the window. I still remember the way the light hit the paper as I shaded it. I remember disappearing into that drawing like the world outside had gone quiet. I won first place. The prize was nothing special, a ribbon and a small box of colored pencils, but I carried that box everywhere for weeks. For the first time, I saw something in myself that felt unmistakably alive. I thought, in the innocent certainty only children have, this is who I am. But childhood has a way of narrowing as you grow older. By the time I reached high school, the questions started. What are you going to do with your life? Art, apparently, was not the correct answer. My father was a practical man, kind, hardworking, deeply devoted to our family. He believed success meant stability, and stability meant a career you could explain in one sentence. Artists struggle, he told me gently. You're too smart for that kind of uncertainty. It wasn't cruelty, it was love shaped by fear. So I listened. I told myself I could always paint later, that adulthood had phases. First, you secure your life, then you enjoy it. I chose accounting. Even now, that sentence feels strange in my mouth. I wasn't bad at it. In fact, I was very good. Numbers behave themselves in ways emotions never do. There is comfort in that predictability. I graduated, found a respectable job, bought sensible clothes, learned how to speak in meetings without my voice trembling. From the outside, my life looked steady. Inside, something had gone quiet. Not broken, just shelved. Every once in a while, I'd pass an art supply store and feel a small pull in my chest. I'd slow down, glance at the brushes arranged in perfect rows, the tubes of paint glowing like candy. Then I'd keep walking. Later, I met Daniel. He was thoughtful, warm, the kind of man who remembered how you took your coffee after hearing it only once. Loving him felt easy. We built a life together that many people hope for, a comfortable home, 2 children, summer vacations planned months in advance. There is deep beauty in ordinary happiness, and I don't want to pretend otherwise. But somewhere between packing school lunches and balancing spreadsheets, I stopped asking myself what I wanted. Years passed the way they often do, quietly, without announcement. One evening, when I was 42, my daughter came home from school carrying a painting she had made. Bold colors, fearless shapes, paint layered so thick it was beginning to crack. "Do you like it?" she asked. I told her it was beautiful, and I meant it. But what surprised me was the sudden sting behind my eyes. Not sadness exactly, recognition. She painted the way I used to, without hesitation, without the voice that asks whether something is practical or impressive or worth the time. That night, after everyone was asleep, I opened a drawer where I had kept an old sketchbook. The paper had yellowed, the pencil lines looked like they belonged to someone else. I closed it quickly. There was always a reason not to begin again. The children needed me, work was demanding, the house required attention, and beneath all those reasons was a quieter one I rarely admitted. What if I wasn't good anymore? Or worse, what if I never had been? It is astonishing how persuasive that kind of doubt can be. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And so I postponed my own life in small, socially acceptable ways. I'll take a class next year, maybe when things calm down, after retirement. Retirement arrived faster than I expected. On my final day at the firm, my colleagues gathered in the conference room with a cake and kind speeches. Someone called me dependable. Someone else said I was the calm center of every storm. I smiled. I thanked them. But driving home, I felt an unexpected heaviness. For decades, I had been so busy building a stable life that I had never paused to ask what waited on the other side of it. 2 months later, Daniel suffered a mild heart attack. He recovered, thankfully, but something about sitting beside that hospital bed rearranged my sense of time. We like to imagine life is long and guaranteed. It isn't. One afternoon, while he was napping, I found myself staring out the hospital window, thinking a single, unsettling thought. If my life ended having never tried the thing I loved, would that be acceptable to me? The answer came quietly. No. Not dramatic, just clear. After Daniel returned home, we began walking together in the evenings, slower walks than before, more deliberate. One night I told him, almost casually, "I think I want to paint again." He looked at me with an expression I couldn't immediately read. Then he smiled. "I always wondered why you stopped." That was it. No resistance, no skepticism, just permission I realized I had never actually needed from anyone but myself. Still, wanting something and stepping toward it are very different things. For weeks, I researched classes without enrolling. I hovered over registration buttons, and fear doesn't vanish just because you recognize it. I eventually enrolled in a beginner's class at a community art studio, a word that comforted and embarrassed me. On the first day, I nearly turned the car around twice. The room was filled with people of every age. I felt suddenly ancient. Then the instructor said, "Talent matters far less than courage. Most people never begin." I picked up the brush. My strokes were awkward, my hand disconnected, but after 20 minutes, the noise in my head softened. Time disappeared. I felt presence, something I hadn't in years. Now I paint weekly. Responsibility and passion aren't opposites. You can be grounded and alive simultaneously. But everything else never really finishes. There will always be another obligation waiting politely in line. If you keep postponing what lights you up, you may wake one day to find decades have slipped by. And yet, this is important, it is never too late to begin. It's never too late to begin, not at 58, not at 68, not ever. Success isn't always about careers. Sometimes it's about honoring what makes you feel alive. When my daughter said I was glad I started again, something healed. How we live quietly gives others permission to do the same. If you are hiding a passion, writing, music, teaching, building, dancing, whatever it is, I want you to ask yourself a gentle but honest question. What am I waiting for? Not the dramatic answer, the real one. Is it time, money, approval, or is it the quiet fear that beginning might change how you see yourself? I spent 35 years believing there would be a perfect moment. There isn't. There is only the moment you decide your life is worth inhabiting fully. Starting has not made my world smaller as I once feared. It has expanded it in ways that are difficult to describe. I notice color everywhere now, the lavender edge of evening clouds, the deep green of rain-soaked leaves. I move through my days less like someone completing tasks and more like someone paying attention. That is the unexpected gift of reclaiming a passion. It returns you to yourself. So please don't make the mistake I did. Don't wait until life reminds you how fragile time is. Don't assume practicality must come at the cost of joy. You are allowed to want something simply because it makes you feel alive. And you are allowed to begin, even if your hands are shaking, especially then. If this story found you at the right moment, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. This space is for honest stories, the kind that remind us we're not alone in our fears or our hopes. And if you've been carrying a dream quietly for years, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment and tell me what it is. Sometimes saying it out loud is the very first step towards claiming it. Your story matters more than you think, and it is never too late to start living it.
And if you've been carrying a dream quietly for years, I'd love to hear about it. Leave a comment and tell me what it is. Sometimes saying it out loud is the very first step toward claiming it. Your story matters more than you think, and it is never too late to start living it.